Alberta in Canada. We're in the heart of the country, as far from the sea in almost any direction as it's possible to get. It's the 1988 Winter Olympic venue, and it's also hosting race 2 of the FIBT Women's Bobsled World Cup. Hello everybody and welcome to a beautifully sunny Calgary, Canada Olympic Park, looking absolutely stunning as we get ready for the action. Martin Haven, and sitting alongside me in the booth is Helen Upperton, the Canadian slider. Now Helen, this track, unique discipline required here in Calgary.
It's a very, very finesse-based track. There's a lot of long straightaways, 14 corners in total. The top 3 corners, they're very slow paced. You don't have a lot of speed, which means you have to be very delicate with the steering, and you have to keep it clean and off the walls. It's very important to build speed through the section. Corner 4 here is the first high-pressure corner. It's 2 oscillations heading into corner 5, and 6-7 is what we call the omega curve, tight transition into curve 7. 2 pressures. Got to keep the sled nice and straight because this corner here, 8, is one of the most crucial parts of the track. This long straightaway is very challenging for these sliders. Kreisel, 5 G's of pressure as you enter that corner and into the labyrinth. This is where we're picking up a lot of speed. Yesterday we saw the men reaching over 130 kilometers an hour through this bottom portion. High line in 13 and into our big final curve 14 and across the finish line.
Well, after a week of Luge World Cup action, before the bobsleds and skeletons arrive, the track is really in mirror perfection state, very quick. But that track record from Shauna Roebuck and Val Fleming in the 2005 Worlds may not come under threat here today. That was the perfect storm, really, for the track.
It was great conditions with weather and temperature, and the ice was beautiful. And they've done a great job here, but it's so much of it is out of our control. It's if it's warm, if it's sunny, if it's snowing.
Well, ice temperature at -3. It's a couple of degrees warmer than it was yesterday. Air temperature +2. A little bit of a breeze as well. The biggest flag in the country, well, certainly in the state, is flying over the top of the hill, and the athletes warming up on the track. Nice warm sunshine, that helps. A little bit of wind, is that going to affect the track in any way? I
actually have to say it's been windier. Always at the top of the Calgary track, they have a lot of wind. It's actually why they can't use the ski jump tower anymore here at Windsport, because of the wind shear, but it is a beautiful day and much warmer than it's been.
Well, our favorites are going to be our 3 Olympic medalists. Kaylee Humphries, of course, the Olympic gold medalist. Alana Myers-Taylor and Jamie Brugmann-Poser will all be going off early in the run. It's Anja Schneider-Heinze that will get the competition underway. And 2 new Canadian development athletes in the Canada 2 sleds. So we'll be talking a little bit more about them during the run. Everybody out enjoying the sunshine and the snow at this Windsport facility. An awful lot more than just the bobsled track here. Half pipes, pistes. There's the ski jump hills, of course, as we just said, and down beside the track at the bottom, all sorts of arenas and rinks as well. Massive winter sport complex. Round 2 of the Wiesmann FIBT Women's Bobsled World Cup will get underway with Germany's Anja Schneider-Heinze, and behind her is Franziska Bertels. These crew in 4th position in the opener in Lake Placid. Will be looking to try and capitalize on a big start. Martin Haven, Helen Upperton trackside watching the action. And the start is going to be very important here, Helen.
It's going to be very important. I expect our American and Canadian sleds to have the strongest starts. We did say the 2 Americans would be the favorites. If anybody's going to fight for one of those medals, it's going to be this sled right here.
Fenlator and draft 2D ball start.
5:62 is the start for Anja Schneider-Heinze and Franziska Bertels. Very experienced pairs.
You can see a lot of the shades closed because of the sunshine. They're trying to protect the ice to make sure it doesn't melt. The integrity of the ice is really important, especially with the 4-man competition coming on later on today. This is a pretty smooth run. She had a bit of a flop off of 6 into curve 7, but this is the most important, one of the most important corners in the track. Taking a few gentle taps along that right wall, heading through Kreisel.
She might be feeling a little happier here. Lake Placid, she was saying, I'm too old for this track. I think that's probably she just wasn't gelling with it. Good speed as well, 125.8 on the final corner, 78.2 miles an hour. Squirrely off the last turn. 56.19, that's the opening shot. Track record 55.44, that's a 56.1, so that shows you that the track is fast, but definitely not quite as fast as it was in 2005.
The timing and precision of the start is just as important as the timing and precision of the pilot in the track. Good load from the brakeman, coming a little bit out of the grooves. You can see the runners trying to point it straight. She's brushing along that right wall. Look at the runners coming back and forth as she tries to regain control, keeping that sled straight in the straightaway.
Former driver Rennie Spies now coaching the team, helping there with the sled. It's all glamour, man-handling all this heavy kit around in all sorts of freezing temperatures. And no space heaters and bars to keep the athletes occupied, unlike the fans. So opening foray from Anja Schneider, Heinze Franziska Bertels. Let's see what Jasmine Fenlator can produce. Natalie de Rat behind her. And good news for Jasmine this week, her mum is back home from hospital. She watched the Lake Placid race online in the hospital. So wish her all the best.
5.72 seconds for the first 50 meters for Jasmine Fenlator.
Slide off of corner one and not that competitive of a start time. That's going to cause a little problem here. She's going to have a beautiful run to try to catch up that speed and that velocity that she lost at the push.
And the downtime record in Calgary,
Gentle tap from 5 to 6 and a late entry into 7. That also is going to kill some speed.
Update that record as the day goes forward.
Skidding down the straightaway, you would rather take a parallel tap against a wall than to go sideways. Going sideways in a bobsleigh is almost the equivalent of gently pulling the brakes. You lose a ton of speed and a ton of time.
It's worth pointing out, people often say, where do you brake on a bobsleigh? Well, the brakeman only ever brakes at the end. Ooh, goodness me, like right there,
Yeah.
hammering on the helmet. Brakes, 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 because the outrun here is very slick, very fast. And you can see, I mean, again, talking to some of the girls saying, this is a massive workout on the upper body and the biceps, hauling on these brakes to try and get the sled stopped. And you could see Natalie there in the back. You could really see the grimace on her face as she's wrestling this thing.
Calgary has a very fast outrun, and you're going 125 plus kilometers an hour. This is that late transition from 6, 7. She's going to take these 2 oscillations because she didn't have a nice entry into the corner. Corner 8 here, it's a really crucial part of the track. She takes a high line, gets some pressure, it sends her skidding down the straightaway. You don't want to drive when you're on a straightaway and a high line out of 14 taking a big hit as she crosses the finish line.
Well, they didn't quite park it off the final corner, but Jasmine trying to let it fly and get the speed. Next up then, surely the pre-race favourite, our Olympic champion, Kaylee Humphries, with Kate O'Brien behind her.
Garrett, think about start.
5:64 is an okay start. I mean, Kaylee and Heather Moyes have the push record here in Calgary, which is a 5.45, so they're a little bit off the pace. Kate O'Brien is actually doing double duty between 2 sports right now. She's competing in cycling, velodrome cycling with the national team, so she's having a bit of a busy winter.
200s behind at the start, 900s back now.
Make that clear. 9.
Kaylee, beautiful exit of curve 8. This is her home track. She should know this track and these lines better than any other pilot in the field. Great exit of Kreisel, nice and straight and clean.
Slower than the US and German sleds. Second down, the Olympic champion. And she is in second place, 56.35. So she found more speed at the bottom than Jasmine Fenlator to kind of reduce the deficit. Be excited with that particularly. Little shake of the head. It's one of the things when you're an athlete, and you've had this as a driver, the post-Olympic season, there's always some of the top athletes are taking a little bit of time out, taking a bit of a mental as well as physical rest. And so that performance level does drop off a little.
This is that beautiful exit of curve 8. You can see her runners are barely moving, which means she's not correcting as she goes down the straightaway. And that's how the pros do it. Kaylee has so many runs on this track. And again, out of Kreisel, no pressure, right down the pipe into curve 10. Just doesn't have the speed.
Anja Schneider-Heinz, her fastest sled, and she is our race leader. Having sung up the praises of the top 3 on the Olympic podium as our guaranteed podium spots, Schneider-Heinz is tearing the form book up a little.
Yeah, and you wonder how much distraction this 4-man race, like Kaylee and Alana Myers, have to prepare again to do 2 more runs in a few hours while they make history being the first women to compete in the 4-man discipline.
Well, that's a valid point. They talked to Lyndon Rushford about that at the start. I said, physically, isn't going to be a thing. No, we do. You know, 4 heats in a day, it shouldn't be that much. Plus, in the 4-man, they're going to have 3 guys behind. Now, they're resetting. They've got time to do it. You have a 60-second clock in bobsleigh rather than 30 in skeleton. So they just want to get this reset right and get that power drive off the bike. There you go. And that was why the reset is worth it. 5:52, a 10th clear.
But that push time negated probably by that huge mistake out of curve 1. She had too high of a line, slid off, and I believe she tapped the wall twice before corner 2. Mistakes at the top of the track, they just cause so much of a loss of speed.
Still has the lead over Anja Schneider-Heinz. So that momentum, Sherelle Garrett, new to the team from Hayward, California, always races in pink. So she'll have a pink visor, pink socks, pink trainers, something.
Skid out of 10 there, going really, sorry, out of 9, really early into curve 10, nose pointing in, high line at 12 as well. She's letting it fly at the bottom of the track.
Good speed, 126.9, 78.9 miles an hour. Only Jasmine Fenlator's BMW sled had better speed at the bottom.
And we saw this same situation at the Olympics in Sochi. I mean, Kaylee Humphries' run looked a lot cleaner, but Alana had a better start. Not as smooth of a run, a huge mistake out of curve 1, a bit of a bumpy ride at the bottom, but really fast. It could be equipment, it could be the push time. You can see here these athletes. Alana is such a powerful pusher. She's so strong at the start, but we're going to see this big mistake out of curve 1. Oh. Coming into the bottom of the track here, that's curve 6 into 7. It's not a bad line. She's nice and parallel through these 2 pressures, taking a little bit of a climb there at the exit.
Well, Sherelle Garrett is definitely a great addition to the US team. She is really enjoying her time, and she's got great speed, and you need great power and speed to hang on with Alana Myers-Taylor at the start of these races. There you go, you saw the pink track shoes. So they have the lead of the race for the USA. Next up, Jamie Grubel-Poser and Lauren Gibbs, former Cornell heptathlete Jamie Grubel. So she's got plenty of power and speed. And again, Lauren, new to the team for this season. Another great find from the US net.
5:64 is a good push time. I feel like they would have had a little bit more speed there if they would have ran it a little farther. It looked like both athletes got in early, but it is important to be seated before you head into that first curve. So they were taking a little bit of a safe program at the push, drifting a little bit from side to side in the straightaway as she heads into curve 4. Late entry into curve 7, flopping off the 6.
Third at the moment, ahead of Kaylee Humphries, but that was close.
That was very close. 8 is the corner that usually causes the most problems on this track in Calgary. You can see she built a lot of pressure there and almost had a bit of an accident.
But again, speed is still good. The sled works very well aerodynamically. 126.3 at the line, 78.5 miles an hour on sheet ice with inch-wide steel for steering and no brakes at all. We toss these numbers around, don't we? But if you're driving 78 miles an hour on the highway on sheet ice in your car, you know all about it.
This is out of curve 3. She returns her steering to neutral a little bit too fast, so she's pointing into the left wall. And when you hit a wall, it's going to send you across the track into the other side. And this is that 2-runner exit out of 8. You can see the articulation trying to put her back on her runners. Close call.
Climbed and climbed and climbed, and oh, Brian Scheimer and Sepp Plotz are watching there, and that was close enough.
And it's shocking to me that with a 2-runner exit out of 8 and the same push time as Kaylee Humphries, that she's actually ahead of her in the track, 200ths faster.
Well, it's been a good morning so far for the US sliders. Alana Myers-Taylor leads from Anja Schneider-Heinze of Germany, Jamie Grubel-Poser in 3rd, Jasmine Fenlator in 5th spot. Coaches in the sunshine, always a nice thing to enjoy at the top of the track here, making the most of that extra bit of vitamin D. And you can see in the background, in fact, this is down the finish deck, down in the background, you see all those sled sheds, loads and loads of current and old sheds, and in fact, just round the corner behind the shed, you'll see a Jamaican sled still with stickers from the 1988 Winter Olympic Games. And those 2 words, I mean, we talk about this a lot, you know, and everybody, whether they know what bobsled is or not, if you say those 2 magic words, cool runnings, suddenly they can picture the scene and they know exactly what the sport is.
Yeah, it really helped make a name for the story of the Jamaican bobsleigh team and also the track here in Calgary. It is such a famous movie and really brought a lot of notoriety to the city and to the track for that Olympic event in 1988. This is one of the older tracks on the circuit now, and still always a staple, and the athletes love coming here. You know, the city of Calgary, the beautiful weather, you know, it depends. Sometimes we've raced in some really cold conditions here before, but this weekend's lovely. Yeah,
I mean, that's always one of the things, is that being right in the heart of the country, it's a very, very continental climate. Hot summers, cold winters. So, you know, -10 and down to -20 sometimes on the top of that hill. And nighttime races are always a big thing here as well, aren't they? So it can be pretty brisk.
Looks like there's a lot of spectators here. Winsport, like you mentioned before, it has so many different facilities now at the park with the ski hill and the ski jumps and the hockey rinks. It's such a big training hub for Canadian athletes.
The 2-man sled for the women and the men is the same basic sled. The women have a lighter all-up weight because the women tend to be not much lighter, but certainly lighter than the men. And in fact, when we get into this afternoon's 4-man race, the women, Alana Myers-Taylor and Kaylee Humphries, will be driving exactly the same sleds as the men. So the kit will be the same. In fact, they are sleds that the guys have raced before. So they will have the same all-up weight. They'll be pushing the same weight sled off the start. Calgary, Alberta in Canada. The first of 2 heats, race 2 of the Viessmann FIBT Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. Next up, Team Great Britain, Misha McNeill from Newcastle and Nikki McSweeney from Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire. And a silver medalist in the Youth Olympic Games, Misha McNeill at Eagles, Austria a couple of years ago. And her next race there will be in just a couple of weeks after Christmas. Of course, next year's World Championships will be there as well. A track she's grown up on, as many drivers do. It's one of the familiar tracks from a lot of drivers' early years.
Ready? 1, 2.
5:81 is the slowest push time in the competition so far, but like you said, Mika is a very young, up-and-coming pilot. She's trying to be the next kind of leader of the British bobsleigh program on the women's side, and she's done a lot of the development races, spent a lot of time here in Calgary. But she is still learning. A bit of a bumpy ride so far, taking a few taps on those walls. Nice line in curve 7.
It's definitely a young development program for British women at the moment.
Oh, late entry into Kreisel, and 5 Gs of pressure when you enter that corner, and when you go in pinned on the left wall like this British sled did, that makes for a rough entry.
.25.7, not bad speed at the bottom of the hill. But the great woman's back will be feeling that transition. That's the kind of take on that pops out discs.
There's a few places on this track that are so crucial to building speed, and one of these is this straightaway. She is pinned on the left wall, and that is a hard left turn up ahead. You can see the driver's head bouncing off the cowling. Her neck is going to definitely be feeling that later on today.
They basically almost just hit the wall head on and straight up it. No real turn there at all. So they are currently lying in sixth position. And down safely, another run completed. There's Misha McNeill. Heading back to the northeast of England for Christmas time. Short Christmas break for all these athletes. Getting back into action second week of January. Next up, former junior world champion in women's bobsleigh, Stephanie Schurick, with Lisa Marie Bookfitz behind her. And this is Lisa Marie's first ever World Cup stars, I believe. 5:69 start, only 700s behind Anja Schneider, her teammate. And that's your immediate benchmark, is trying to beat the fastest starters in your own team.
Yeah, that's the first step, and then it's to be the most dominant starter in the world. And that's what we saw at the Olympic Games. That's what we see in most of the World Cups. The push is just as important as any other component in the sport. If you don't have a fast start, you're going to be behind. They say every 100th at the top triples on the way as you go down the track, and by the time you get to the bottom. And Stephanie used to be a brakeman with the German team, so she has a lot of years of sliding experience. Tapping out a Kreisel there, heading into corner 10.
Sixth place at the moment, the police officer from Germany.
Kilometers an hour at the finish.
Ooh, and again, a really late exit. Everybody's just trying to do as little as possible in those bottom corners. He speaks almost not with enough fingers. In the second heat, you normally want to just see one, which means you've held your position. But there he's just, all arms and elbows there, fingers all over the place. Sixth place for them, just ahead of Misha McNeill of Great Britain.
This is the entry into curve 1, and she steers a little too hard and too soon. The sled comes sideways off the exit, skidding down that straightaway and taking a tap on the left wall, and those mistakes in the top are costly. Exit of Kreisel taking a tap before corner 10. We've seen a few sleds make that same mistake in the race so far.
Well, the exit of Kreisel caused quite a few crashes in training. Actually, not many of the women had any dramas with it, but the two-man and some of the four-man sleds did, definitely. In that last corner, we saw one of the GB sleds crashed out of the final, or in the final corner as well during training. Christoph Lang with a very expressive face always. Stephanie Schurick, Lisa Marie Bookfitz. Next up is Team GB, Victoria Olay from London, and Braintree and Essex's Alicia Kiddle. Second of the two Great Britain sleds on the tour. And Vicky, more experienced of the two drivers. Helen, viewers at home will notice that some drivers start back on the block with their brakemen, some start on the front handle, and that's just purely a matter of personal choice, right?
Yeah, it's just personal preference, but if you're going to start at the block and run at the bar, the timing between the brakeman and the driver has to be perfect, especially with the women. You are going to run full on into a stationary object that weighs 170 kilos, so you need to make sure that both of you are putting momentum into the sled at the exact same time. Wave out of 7, big wave. Bit of a flop off of curve 8. We knew that that was going to be a bit of an issue based on her line from 6 from corner 7. High off the exit of Kreisel, skidding into curve 10.
Not the greatest speed down at the bottom. And she comes back in 8th place. So Misha McNeill in 7th, Vicky Olay in 8th. Misha at the moment with the upper hand over her teammate. And that's the first battle always, isn't it? Bragging rights in the changing room. That's almost as important as winning a race.
A lot of times your ranking within the team determines who your brakeman is, what runners you have access to, which sled you get. So it's always a battle. This is a very late transition from 6 into 7. Putting her on a big wave. These are two pressures. That's why you see the sled climb and fall in the oscillations. 8, she does an okay job, takes a high line, catching some pressure at the exit with a bit of a flop off. Not the worst exit of 8 we've seen so far in the race.
There's Alana Myers-Taylor getting suited up to keep the warmth in the muscles. And that's really important part of the discipline of bobsledding. You know, when you're a summer athlete, it's not quite so important, but when you're a winter athlete, particularly when you get to the really colder tracks, then keeping those muscles warm is absolutely crucial for performance. You see Victoria Olay and Alicia Kiddle putting the scabbards over the runners. The runners sit in there, suspended, so they don't get touched by anything, and that's what you use to transport the sleds. Next up from Belgium, Elfie Villiamsen and Annelies Hotolf. Just like to say hello to Anne van Neuenhuizen, who will be watching back home in Belgium. They watched the first race in Lake Placid online while they were polishing runners for the Europa Cup race. And that's the great thing about the YouTube coverage, so you can take it anywhere with you.
5:92, way behind at the start. This Belgian team has been really fascinating to watch. Elfie's becoming such a great driver, and they are flying with the equipment that they're using. They were fast and so cheap, just off the podium, which is unbelievable for such a new sport. The women are very recent to the sport of bobsleigh from Belgium. The men have been around for quite some time.
Yeah. Nice lines as well. We talked yesterday in the men's race about straight down the track.
Nice exit of curve 8, taking a gentle tap, but not a really big issue. And it always just seems like she runs out of track with the start deficit. She just needs a little bit more distance to be able to catch up some of the faster starting teams.
One thing this sled always produces is stunning numbers of top speed. 127.9. There you go again. 0.7 of a kilometre an hour quicker than anybody else at the bottom. This thing absolutely flies. I don't know how much time Janis Kratzian spends in wind tunnels, but if it's that intuitive that he's finding the speed, then he's doing one heck of a job. They love this sled so much. That's where the Belgian bullet thing has come from. So 6th place for Alpha Villiamsen.
And this is where they lose their time. If this team only had a push, she would be contending for the gold medal with a run like that and with speed like that at the bottom. They are way back at the push. I mean, 0.2 kilometers an hour. Like, this is a crazy amount of time to make up. And now you see at the bottom, she is so fast in the track. If she had a little bit more distance, she would have caught some of these teams in the top.
Fastest starter was Alana Myers-Taylor, 5:52, and they started 5:92. 0.4 of a second. By the rule of bobsled, should be 1.2 behind, and she ends up much closer to the leaders, just 0.59 back. So next up is our Russian duo, Nadia Sergeeva and Nadia Paleva. I chat with them during training. Sergeeva saying this is one of her favourite tracks. It's where she had her bob school. It's where she had some of her first races. She said for her, it's almost like coming home.
Yeah, these teams spent a lot of time here. The Russian teams being coached by Pierre Lueders, legendary Canadian pilot, 2-time Olympic medalist. High line from 4 into 5 there. She's going to lose a little bit of time. She had some trouble at the top. She skidded out of 1. She had a rough exit from 4 into 5. But she's a young pilot. You know, she barely had enough runs, managed to qualify for the Sochi Olympics, competing at home. Very late entry into Kreisel. But a nice exit. The labyrinth corners are where you try to maintain all that speed that you built at the top of the track.
I think that in the first year or two of her career, going to a home Olympics would be a bit overwhelming. The bonus of that is no matter where else she goes, it's not going to be the huge drama that trying to race at home in Russia would have been. So she's had the ultimate cauldron as her first experience of the Games. And a little bit of a rocky road. Sergeeva in 10th position. She got it down.
Yeah, the Russian Federation, such a strong men's program, often with 3 competitive sleds, and they're really trying to build up the women's program. This is a decent push time. 5:68 is enough, and it is competitive, but she does have a mistake out of curve 1. This is that crucial exit of curve 8, taking a tap on the right wall. You can see the ice flying off the short wall as her bunks make contact.
Compare and contrast, Kaylee Humphries started 5:64, Sergeeva started 5:68, so that's really quite close to the Olympic champion, but Humphries is 4th and Sergeeva is 10th, so there is more to learn to catch up with Kaylee's driving, that much is for certain. Now, these are two of your new young development athletes, aren't they? Alicia Rissling and Julia Carenti, so tell us about these two girls.
They're both pilots, actually. Julia's pushing Alicia. They're both good athletes. Fast, strong pushing athletes, but they're pretty young in their development as pilots, as bobsledders, and this is their first World Cup competition. So they're being thrown to the wolves, and learning how to drive is one thing, learning how to race is another.
At the deep end, courtesy of Coach Helen Upperton. So this is a World Cup debut for Alicia Rissling and Julia Carent. 5:67, just a fraction in front of the Russians and only a couple of hundreds slower than Kaylee Humphries, 5:64. So see, they've got power.
Yeah, good competitive push. A little too long of a steer off of 3, but she's okay into curve 4. And again, this is home track for her too. She has more runs here than anywhere else. Nice line through 6 into 7. Such an important exit, and she does a good job drifting late and a skid. You can see the sled drifting away, and she was probably trying to correct it. You cannot steer in the straightaway. It will put you into a skid, which is what happened to this team.
Forgive her for being a little tight and nervy. This might end up being one of her worst trips down Calgary. Of course, when you want to produce your best, but you've got the whole world watching, you know everybody's watching at home or from the trackside, and you've got the cameras in your face and all of the other new stuff. I'd certainly be forgiven for being a little tight in the first heat. We've seen that a few times already this season from brand new athletes in the World Cup. They're down safely, little untidily towards the bottom of the track. I'm sure she'll be happy to get back in the second heat and tidy it up.
And the top of the track was actually quite good, and that's what, as a team, we've been spending a lot of time focusing on, but here is where the trouble starts. Big skid down the straightaway, nose away into Kreisel. She manages to correct it, but it takes a lot of driving to do so, and she has a problem at the exit too, having a bit of a skid and a really high line out of 13, taking a big hit as she goes into the finish curve.
She's probably sitting there cursing herself going, I can't believe I drove like that. I know this track. But she's got it done, and that's her first ever World Cup start, and that means that the second one will be a whole heck of a lot easier. So Lisa Rissling, Julia Carent getting on with the glamour side of it, as Alana Myers-Taylor and Sherelle Garrett lead the race after the first of our 2 heats. Fastest at the start and first to the finish line as well. First of 2 races today for Alana Myers-Taylor. She gets to go again in the 4-man competition later on during the afternoon. Before that, though, she has to defend her lead in Heat 2 here in the second race of the Viessmann FIBT Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. Well, Trans-Canada Highway down at the bottom of the track there. Highway 1 goes coast to coast, and we're about halfway between the two. There's the standings. Anja Schneider-Heinze of Germany, very strong second place after Heat 1, ahead of Olympic bronze medalist Jamie Grubel-Poser, third for the USA. The Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries, 4th, Jasmine Fenlator in 5th, and Alpha Villiamsen in 6th position, just a whisker behind her. That's a close little gap there, close little battle for the podium as well. So 11 sleds, we've added the second Canadian sled. We lost the Brazilians after Lake Placid. They've gone home to, well, in fact, their driver's gone home to compete in a weightlifting competition to try and qualify for the Rio Summer Games. So all sorts of multi-disciplines going on. Join us for the second heat here. First sled will be on ice at 12:30 local time. That is 19:30 Greenwich Mean Time. Till then, from Helen Upton, Martin Haven, and the rest of the crew, bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, a little break between heats 1 and 2 so the athletes can get reorganized, take a quick look at their equipment, and get ready for the second heat in women's two-man competition. 4 runners for heat 2 will be at 12:26. I'm about 11:40 right now, so you've got a few minutes to grab a hot chocolate or something to eat if you like. 12:26 for 4 runners, 12:34 for the Canadian sled of Alicia Rissling and Julia Corrente, who will get us started in heat number 2.